Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos, Parshas Vayikra. The beginning of a new Sefer. We take everything that we did in the previous Sefer, the build-up to the Hashras HaShechina, to the resting of the Divine Presence, which was really the completion of the entire Exodus of Egypt, building of the Mishkan, and then the Shechina resting on the Mishkan. Now, the Torah tells us what to do inside the Mishkan. It talks to us about korbanos, about sacrifices, and about the things that have to be done. Amongst the sacrifices that we have to bring, Torah says, "V'im takriv minchas bikurim," and that when you're going to bring a minchas bikurim, a meal offering, to God, aviv kolu ba'esh geres karmel takriv es minchas bikurecha, so that when you're going to bring the meal offering of the first grains to God from ripe ears, parched over fire, ground from plump kernels, you should bring that meal offering of your first grain. And this, of course, is talking about the mitzvah of the hakravas haomer, of the sacrifice of the omer, which is done on the second day of Pesach. The way that it's introduced to us with the word im, with the word if is the way it translates. Rashi picks this up and says, Hare im mishamesh, that the word im is used b'lashon ki, of a lashon of when, of that. Sharei ein ze reshus. This is not a reshus. Sharei b'minchas ha'omer hakosim medaber, because we're talking about the minchas ha'omer. We're talking about the meal offering that has to be brought, the omer offering that has to be brought on the second day of Pesach, and that's a chayva. That's an obligation. That is not an option. And therefore, though the Torah uses the word ve'im, that would normally translate as if you're going to bring the sacrifice, it's no option, you are obligated to do this. And the truth is, though, that this is not the first time that the word im is used in this kind of way. Rashi points out at the end of Parshas Yisro, when the Torah is given to us, Rashi says, V'im mizbach avonim ta'asali, if you're going to make a mizbeach of stone, lo sivnes en gozis, then you shouldn't make it out of hewn stones, because you will have used some kind of metal to do that, and that would not have been okay. Rashi points out over there, when it says ve'im, that if you're going to make a mizbach avanim, a mizbech of stones, so Rashi says that Rabbi Yishmael Omer, kol im ve'im shebetorah rishus. Every time it says the word im in the Torah, it's an optional thing. If you do this, it's optional, except for three places. First place, right here, the mizbach avanim ta'asali. Hare im ze mishamish b'loshen kasha. The word im here doesn't mean if, it means when. And in other words, when you're going to make for me a mizbach avanim, then don't build it, don't make it this way. Then, the second time, v'chenim kesef talve, that if you're going to lend money to someone, so that's not an option to lend money, it's a chayvahu, it's an obligation. And then when it says im takriv minchas bikurim in our parsha today, that if you're going to be makriv the minchas bikurim, if you're going to bring this mincha, that's not zu minchas ha'omer, is referring to the omer shechava, which is an obligation. So Rashi tells us there's not just one place where we use the word im, which would normally mean if, but it means when. There are actually three places where we do that. And we have to ask the obvious questions. First of all, if you say when, if you say if, then it means if. Why are you saying when and using the word if? Why use a word that's confusing? Just say kasher, when you do this. Don't use that iffy word if, im, if you're going to do this. The second question, of course, is why are these three places chosen as places to teach this? That instead of using the word kasher, the word when, we use the word im, we use the word if. Look very carefully at these three places. The mizbach avanim, the building of the altar, lending of money, and the offering of the omer offering, which is the count towards the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. Look again. Mizbach avanim, building a mizbeach, that's about avodah, about service of God. Im kesef, about lending money, about gemilus chasadim, acts of loving kindness. Im takriv, That's about preparing for Kabbalas HaTorah. That's Torah. There were three relationships that we're told are the fundamental relationships of our lives. Building a relationship with God, building a relationship with other people, and building a relationship with ourselves. Raising ourselves above animalistic things and being in control of ourselves and teaching ourselves how to direct ourselves and focus ourselves. The Torah is presenting to us not the obligatory or permissive status of these mitzvos. What the Torah is telling me is about the attitude of how I have to perform them. That it's telling me that it has to be kasher, but it's got to be written as an im. It's got to be when you do it. You have an obligation, you must do it. But what's the attitude that I want you to do it with? Im kesef tavas hamecha. If you're going to loan money to somebody else, if you're going to have to make it feel like it's something that you want to do, something that you chose the option to do. When it comes to sacrifices, to building, to having an avodah Hashem, a service of God, it has to feel like it's a privilege, like it's something that you're desiring to do. Im mizachavonim. It's kasher, you must do this. But it's got to seem like it's an im. When it comes to Torah, you have an obligation to accept and to prepare for the Torah. But you got to make it like it's a ratzon, like it's a desire, like it's something that's pouring out of you. Im. Takriv. If you're going to be makriv, this mincha, this offering of preparation for the giving of the Torah. That's what the Torah is telling me. Torah is telling me with the word im, it's not about that it's optional. It's about the attitude with which you got to do it. And it applies not just to mitzvahs, but three categories. To Torah, to Avodah, and Gemilus Chasadim. And that's why the Torah chose three places to make this point. To tell me that these three places are the binyan av, they're the paradigm for the rest of the Torah. And that everything we do, we have to do not with a sense of drudgery and obligation, but with a sense of desire, ratzon. And it's a message we need to hear at the beginning of Nisan. We're going to be spending a ton of money. We're going to be working very hard. The preparations are an incredible onus, an incredible yoke on us. The Torah wants us to hear this message before we get stuck into the preps of Pesach, so that we understand, yeah, Pesach is a kasher. You got to do it, bud. You don't got no choice. But you got to make it feel like it's an im. You got to make it feel like it's pouring out a ratzon, a desire. It's a privilege to be able to do this. And that's the stuff Geula is made of. Redemption on a national level and redemption on a personal level is made when you don't feel put on, but when you feel like this is an incredible opportunity and an incredible choice and an incredible merit and honor and a schus to be able to go through this process and to lift ourselves up. We should be zeicha not to feel like it's a drudgery and a treachery. We should be zeicha to feel that this Pesach is not a kasher, but it should pour out of us that this is an im. And then we will achieve our own geula And with that, Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people in general, will be able to achieve their national geula. May this be the month where kasher changes to im, and the gullus gives rise to the geula, to the great redemption. Shabbos.